I want to chat with you today about an issue that is central to musicians' focal dystonia, and that is fear. And fear can manifest in many different ways with this condition, but we can also unknowingly feed fear and anxiety. Let me just give you an example. So, you've just woken up, you're hanging out in bed, thinking about your day, and one of the things you're going to do is you are going to do a recovery training session. So you start to think about that. And you have some shivers go down your back. Maybe you have a little knot in your stomach. And then maybe you get a whole torrent of negative thoughts like, is training really going to make a difference? Am I ever going to perform again? Am I going to be able to play with people again? Am I going to even be able to touch my instrument again? All these negative thoughts run through your head. And then you might even be thinking about, well, what if I don't make any progress in my training session today? What then? Because I'm on a timeline. I got to get through this fast. What's going to happen then? So all these negative thoughts are all rooted in fear and anxiety. And when we have these thoughts, the subconscious mind is a wonderful data recorder, and it's capturing all these thoughts that we're generating. And it uses this information as a database to refer to. If we allow this to continue and we don't interrupt this process, it can deepen and it becomes more and more habitual. So this is where we need to be able to recognize what we're doing, insist that we are not doing this anymore, and show ourselves what we do want. So that means taking conscious charge of our thoughts and saying, you know what, I'm not going to think this way anymore. I am excited to train today. I look forward to learning, and I am making progress. Any or all of those thoughts are far better than having the negative ones. Let me give you another example of how we might unknowingly be feeding fear. So you've come into your practice space and you're going to work on a recovery training session. And whatever action you're going to work on, let's say it's bringing fingers up and touching lips. So this doesn't apply to all forms, obviously, of musicians' focal dystonia, but this is one of the things that we use in a particular way for a particular situation. So let's say that it's going to be, I want to be able to bring my fingers up, touch my lips without having any unwanted activations. And let's say that the unwanted activation that you're really focused on is tightening at the back of the neck, which is very, very common. Even before you do the action, the shadow, as Greg Spence calls it, crosses your mind. I don't know what's going to happen. That shadow is a negative thought. It's not one of curiosity. It's not, I wonder what will happen today. It's, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's behind that door. I feel like I'm stepping out on the ice. I feel like I'm jumping off a ledge. I mention this because this is something that I have encountered time and time again through the recovery process with the various strategies that we've been applying. This whole idea of I don't know what's going to happen. And if you think back in time, before you were obviously affected by musicians' focal dystonia, you probably didn't have too many of these thoughts. You knew that you could just pick up your instrument and play a note on it, and it just, there wasn't a thought that that wasn't going to work. It was, your head was somewhere else. It was in the music, it was in phrasing, it was in playing in time with your bandmates, whatever it might be. But it certainly wasn't in the physical execution of playing a note or doing a particular action in this case. But now our headspace has been taken over, and avoiding the unwanted activation is often top of mind. We just don't like to experience these very, very unpleasant muscle contractions, tremors, and shakes We just don't want to. So when we have these thoughts of, I don't know what's going to happen, I feel like I'm stepping out on the ice, we have already planted seeds of fear and anxiety before we have even done the action. So again, this is an opportunity to correct something that will enable us to make a more recovery process. But we first have to recognize what we're doing. We have to recognize that we're doing this. So that's taking a step back. I see what I'm doing here. I'm thinking this way. I don't want to think this way. And then we need to make a shift in our head. Another example of how we might be feeding fear and anxiety can happen just during daily life when we think about anything remotely attached to playing our instrument. And this can be, anything. But we can have these thoughts of, these sabotaging thoughts of, the last time I touched my instrument, my hand shook, or I don't know if I'm ever really going to get better. Just myriad possibilities for negative thoughts. And this is, again, where we need to take charge. And we need to recognize that we're doing this, and we need to say, I'm not thinking this way anymore. And we need to remind ourselves that we are taking steps back to playing with our groups, to performing, we are making progress, etc. The point with all of this is that first we need to recognize what we're doing. We need to recognize that we are, in fact, in control of these thoughts, and we need to make a shift. And just in thinking back through the recovery process for me personally, some of my biggest steps forward were when I got my thinking straightened out, because I used to be swamped with negative thoughts. And it really does just become a pattern, a certain way of thinking, and we almost don't realize we're doing it. But I would be absolutely swamped with these thoughts. Once I started taking charge and redirecting and telling myself what I did want, that all turned down to a dull roar and then turned down to almost nothing. And when that happened, I was able to take some serious steps forward. So this is all part of our recovery system. As we have mentioned on the website, we are addressing the mind and the body, and this is one example. I hope this tip helps you in your recovery process. It's a really important one.